It's springtime. And springtime is such an interesting time of year. It's a time of renewal, rebirth, and for many of us that have assembled here in this great auditorium, the opportunity to take one more chance and see if we can put it all together. And that's what it's about. And I was reminded when I was coming down here to do this presentation, a couple of years back, my daughter Ashley, 17 at the time, she and I decided to go check out Peoria, Arizona. You see, that's where the Seattle Mariners will show up every year about this time for spring training. Now, I'd never been before. I'm an avid baseball fan, love the Mariners when they're winning. And, you know, but it's an exciting time. Here's what was interesting. Being there in Peoria, munching on some popcorn, drinking a Coke, one hot afternoon, I noticed something extraordinary. These multi-million-dollar earners were practicing the fundamentals. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're in baseball and if you want to make millions, the fundamentals are very simple. Learn how to throw the ball. I think we can agree this would be important. Learn how to catch the ball. And when it's your turn at bat, make sure you can hit the ball. Now, someone said one time, no, you've got to be able to run rapidly too. I said, no. See, if you're Edgar Martinez and you hit it out of the park, they let you walk around. So, you know, you don't necessarily need to be in a position to run well if you can hit extraordinarily well. But you do need to be able to hit the ball, do need to be able to catch the ball, you do need to be able to throw the ball. These are the fundamentals. However, when you get into this business called prepaid legal, the question is, what are the fundamentals? And what we're going to be speaking about are the fundamentals, the principles that you can use to explode your business. And those fundamentals hopefully will be on the screen behind me now. If we can go to the first slide. The fundamentals of this business, of course, are prospecting. We just had a dissertation on that, prospecting. We've got to find people, obviously, to talk to. Presentation. We do need to remember to talk to the people we find. We sometimes forget this. And obviously, duplication, which is that elusive goal of turning all those people into leaders, those who choose to join us. But somewhere etched in between prospecting, finding, and presentation, the actual art of sharing the prepaid legal story, lies this concept called contacting and inviting. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're going to talk about today, is contacting and inviting. When we talk about contacting and inviting, though, what I want to start out with are the ground rules, because we need to understand the rules of the game. In baseball, we know we've got 3 outs, there are 9 innings, each side gets to start. If we understand the rules of the game, we can have an extraordinarily well-performed game. But in every ballpark, there are unique rules, and in this arena, there are also some rules we need to follow. The first one is to understand and appreciate that those individuals who will choose to join you in prepaid legal will do so to the degree that they know, like, and trust you. That's critically important to understand. Going to the dry cleaner and grabbing business cards out of someone else's fishbowl to call them when you get home is something I've heard people have done from time to time. However, they probably don't know you. I'm not quite certain they would be excited about how you acquired their business card, and without the trust factor therein, it's going to be difficult at best to schedule an appointment. So know, like, and trust are important. Also, we have to remember, our goal when we're sitting down and talking to these individuals, our goal is very simply to get them to take a look. When you're scheduling an appointment, we are not there to present, we're there to set. And there's a fundamental difference between the two. And if you want to see how you're doing in this arena, I would strongly suggest you to start recording some of your conversations and see if you cross over from time to time. Remember, goal to take a look, and then never, never, never share with them anything until you can share with them everything. And here's the key word: because it's not fair to them. You see, again, this is one of the fundamentals, one of the ground rules when we get involved in the art of contacting and inviting. Now, once we've understood the ground rules of contacting and inviting, it's easy to appreciate the 5 simple steps that we'll be engaging in. So our conversation for the balance of my time with you this afternoon, we're going to be covering the 5 elements of becoming a master contactor and inviter. And those are, of course, have something to say. Learn how to say it extraordinarily well. Make certain that you set the actual appointment. This, after all, is our ultimate goal. And say goodbye. Once we've said goodbye, we want to move into our next strategy, of course, which is to make another call. So let's consider these 5 steps And I'm going to ask for each and every one of you to take copious notes so that you can take this back into the marketplace, apply it into your business, and create for yourself and for those that you care about a magnificent life. Because I'm telling you, if you can find enough people to speak with, and if you can find a way to sit down in front of them and tell the story, and if you can just find the people, tell the story, find the people, tell the story, you can do this again and again and again, you can build something absolutely magnificent. So here's what we've got to start out with. Have something to say. Now this, I think we can agree, is critical. Here's the challenge. From the level of comfort and confidence comes the ability to wing it. You know, so many of us, we're just going to pick up the phone and give them a call. We'll come, it'll be on the fly. We'll figure out something as we go, figure out something as we talk, figure out something as the presentation unfolds. I'm suggesting to you that there's a better way. Every great film that you have ever enjoyed started with someone's ideas committed to paper. It was the words of the writer that mastered the words that were eventually learned and then regurgitated on the screen that produced the great films. So whether you're watching, you know, some of the ones that just were the recipients of the Academy Awards, or whether it's one of your particular favorites, remember, every great movie started with the script, and every great contact will start with your own script. Here's my question to you. Do you have a script? If you're trying to pick up the telephone and make phone calls without one, let me suggest to you very strongly to change that. And here's what I would like for you to include. I would like for you to write a script that allows you to accomplish your goal, but make sure it includes these three elements. Make sure, of course, that you have an introduction in that script, which, of course, is the reason that you're calling. It reminds them in the introduction of who you are, perhaps where you've met, so that they have some recollection of why you happen to be on the phone with them at this moment in time. When we do that, we'll move obviously into the actual invitation. And then once the invitation has been extended and accepted, hopefully, we will simply complete the call with what we call confirmation. Now, some of you may be wondering, all right, well, Michael, what would be a great example of a great script? And here's the challenge. If I were to give you right now the actual words to say, many of you wouldn't say them. And so the challenge I'm going to pose to you is, become your own screenwriter. Write your own script. Find out what's working in your community. Because if you're writing a script for a PBR, it will be different than if you're writing a script for Mr. Stonecipher to come to your community to share that information about prepaid legal. If you want to meet two-on-one over a cup of coffee, the words are undoubtedly going to be different than if you're building for the next event that will happen in your community. You've got to have different scripts for different phone conversations, but make sure you take the time to write the words. Here's a note for yours. Techniques are temporary, principles are permanent. And one of the principles in this business is to have a script when you're prepared to make the call. You've heard some of the outlines given by Dave Savola. I've got something I'd like to share with you. Take about 15 minutes, or something I'd like to show you. Take about 15 minutes, and you may or may not be interested. Extraordinarily well crafted. You take that as an outline, and you add a few more. How do you get in? What's the middle? How do you actually ask for it? And how do you get out? You're going to have the beginnings of a great script. But you need to write the words. You need to practice, drill and rehearse these so that when you can pick up the telephone, it is just absolutely natural. And if someone were giving you an Academy Award, you probably would win. Now, once you've got something to say, you've got to remember that sometimes it isn't what we say as much as what? How we say it. And you can have two different individuals in prepaid legal, ladies and gentlemen. Both can have the same words in front of them. Both can get on the telephone and actually quote from those beautifully, and we can have two entirely different sets of results. Is that possible? The answer is of course. Why is that possible? Because it isn't so much the words, it's how we're going to get these words out. Here's what I want you to remember. There's a gentleman who decided one day he wanted to tell a story, and he did. He wrote the words. They turned them into a screenplay. The screenplay eventually became a movie. We know that today as Philadelphia. Luckily, they were able to secure as the actor in that great film the man named Mr. Tom Hanks. This gentleman who gave the presentation, who gave the story, who shared that with the world, did it in such an extraordinarily well-crafted manner that we bestowed upon him the highest level of accolades we possibly could, an Academy Award. Now, when you think about it, that is an interesting part to play. A gentleman dying of AIDS and crafting someone else's words and making them believable as if they were your own. Lest we forget, Mr. Hanks did not write those words. Someone put those words into his mind and said, use these. Take your skill sets and craft them in such a way that we actually believe that you are indeed this character. And that's what he did. 2 years later, he followed that extraordinary performance up with one of my all-time favorites, Forrest Gump. How many of you saw Forrest Gump? Sure. I've long held suggested that Forrest Gump would be the greatest prepaid legal associate the world had ever produced. It's true. If Forrest Gump were sitting here front and center because you said, Forrest, show up on time, sit until it's over, take copious notes, where do you think he would be? Front and center, stay till it's over, take copious notes. He'd be doing that. Can you do that? I can. Okay. And he'd be there taking notes. And when you're all done, you say, Forrest, you got to go home and make yourself a script. Okay. He'd go home, make a script, and he would go through it. And he would make the calls, make the calls, make the calls. But you know, Tom Hanks took someone else's words, someone else's concept, and said, I would love to take this, put my personality into it, put my passion into it, and create something so magnificent, so believable, so extraordinarily well presented that you again would bestow upon me Hollywood's highest award, which of course we did. We gave him his second Oscar. Now when you think about those two characters, from a gentleman passing or dying of AIDS to someone the likes of which has not really ever existed before, Forrest Gump, can you think of two different characters at all? And yet we gave him the same for both. Amazing performances, but learning someone else's words, saying them extraordinarily well. I'm asking you to do the same. I'm asking you to take the time, if you're serious, to write your own words. I'm asking you to put your music, your, as I call it, passionation into that. Not, we don't want to give a presentation. We want to put our passion into this so that people can feel it on the other end of the telephone. I can tell you when you're making the calls, standing up will give you a completely different feeling and a completely different flow than if you're sitting down. I've heard it said that if you put a mirror in front of yourself and actually gaze into it while you're speaking, you can do some amazing things. Smiling has obviously been shared. When you're smiling on the phone, looking in the mirror, standing up. Now you're thinking, you're going to do this, by the way, standing on the phone, smiling, standing up, looking at yourself in the mirror. I would suggest you have your own room, somewhere off where your family members don't really notice you or the neighbors. But you do come across differently on the telephone, there is absolutely no doubt. And if your ultimate goal is to schedule the appointment, then learn your craft and do it so well. You know, Tom earned millions for having us be convinced that he was indeed those characters. I'm asking you to do the same. Make sure you write your script. Make sure you learn it well. Practice, drill, and rehearse that information. And then deliver it with an Academy Award-winning performance, and watch what happens when you get to the time when you're actually asking them for the appointment. You'll find it will be relatively easy because you'll know what you're going to say. You'll have it scripted out. When you pick up the telephone and say, John, it's Michael Clouse. I don't know if you remember me or not. I'm the young man that stopped by your office 2 days ago. You were so gracious with your time when I asked for some assistance. Tell me, have I got you at a time you can talk for 5 minutes? Now you see how effortlessly that flows from my mind? Because the words have been written and practiced and drilled and rehearsed so many times that the only thing I need to insert into the presentation is the individual's personal name. I'm asking you to do the same. Remember, when you are setting the appointment, to the degree that you are successful, we come back to the basic principles. To the degree that you are successful in scheduling that appointment will be to the same degree that they know, like, and trust you. And here's something I hope you will always remember. If they know, like, and trust you, they will allow you to lead them. And what you're looking to do is obviously allow them to lead you right into this conversation, right into this concept called sitting down and having a presentation. Follow your script, ladies and gentlemen, and remember, your script is designed to schedule the appointment. Never tell them anything until you're actually in front of them or they're in front of the event where they can absolutely be exposed to everything. It's one of the fundamentals. And then once you've accomplished your goal, I'm going to ask you to be cognizant of another point. Recognize the fact that you're done. You are complete. It's over. Say goodbye. Too many of us, we take the sale after it has been made away from the consumer because we just keep talking. And sometimes we keep talking because we're a little uncomfortable. We're uncomfortable because we aren't prepared. We're not prepared because, well, we just didn't prepare. I'm asking you to change all that. I'm asking you to make sure that when you confirm the details after you've scheduled the appointment, you do so in writing. John, it's important if you have a calendar, could bring it to the phone just for a moment. I've got some key information I would like for you to record. John says, I've got my calendar right here. What's key? I say, John, we agreed it will meet at 7 o'clock this coming Monday evening at the Bellevue Hyatt Hotel. Now, please make a note. That's off the southeast 8th exit, and it's just a few blocks down, right past the Washington Mutual building. Just write down in your notes, Washington Mutual. You want to take the underground parking, come up on the elevator, and I will meet you on the 3rd floor. Now, you see, I've accomplished it. I have confirmed with John in writing. Now what I need to do is find a way to get out of that conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest interrupters known to man is the phrase, oh, by the way. What I want to insert into this conversation at this moment in time is, oh, by the way, change course, change direction, get off, and move along to my next call. So when I say, and John, oh, by the way, make sure you bring the stub from the parking people to the 3rd floor so I can make sure we validate it for you. John says, I can do that. I'll look forward to seeing you, John. Thanks so much. And get off the phone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's critically important that we say goodbye, and then remember, make another call. One of the biggest tragedies we have in this business is you got one, and you stop. It's called momentum. If you've got one, you can get another one if you'll just make another call. You know, I learned early on in this business that what you lack in skill, you can easily make up for in activity. But activity does imply making another call. And I can also suggest to you very strongly, having tried this both ways, you will be significantly more successful in this contacting and inviting arena if you will do these in blocks of time. In other words, don't sit down and make 2 or 3 calls. Sit down and make 20 or 30. Hey, even a great ball player may take an inning or 2 before they're warmed up. And usually if you watch the game, you know, you pick it up in the 3rd or 4th inning, that's when the action really starts to occur because they've been up to bat a couple of times, the jitters are gone, and now they know what the pitcher is getting ready to throw at them, and they can be ready, and they can do way more in the evening as the hours unfold than they can in the early stages of the game. And the same is true with you when you're doing your contacting and inviting. And then, ladies and gentlemen, of course, track your results. Track your activity. Check your ratios. If it's just a little sticky pad where you put a tick mark down after you've made the call and another tick mark for the appointment scheduled, and then work on getting better at the game. You know, in baseball, again, I love the metaphor because what's so extraordinary about that blessed event that comes to us every springtime is they track everything. I mean, they can tell you how well a batter hits against a left-handed batter, a right-handed batter. They can tell how well they do inside, outside, morning games, afternoon games, whether it's a regular or they can tell you if it's East Coast, West Coast, because somebody's keeping score. And so the skipper, the manager, the person responsible for the ultimate victories of this particular franchise, they take all that data and they use it to successfully manage their teams. What about you? Without information, without you actually knowing how you're doing, it's easy to become frustrated. It's easy to become down. I'm asking you, track, keep track, and then work on getting better at the game. You know, we need to remember, there is absolutely nothing wrong in this world with being ignorant in the beginning, as long as our goal is to become intelligent over time. Nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. There's nothing wrong with not being able to do. There's nothing wrong with starting where you are. There's nothing wrong with getting a little better. Here's what is not acceptable: to be ignorant today and to remain ignorant tomorrow. This, ladies and gentlemen, has got to change. For those of you that have come out to this great auditorium to hear from these fine speakers, to glean the information, the wisdom of those that have gone before you to the direction, to the destination that you are looking to go, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to take the wisdom and apply it into your own business and get better and get better and get better. Because when it's ultimately said and done, this business is still about 3 things. We still have to find people to talk to, whether that's over the internet, whether that's in person, whether that's using some type of a lead generating tool. We still must find people to talk to. And once we've found those individuals, we still have to figure out how to actually let them experience or see or be exposed to the prepaid legal story. Hopefully through a briefing, a tool, or an event, but they've got to see the story. And the only way that's going to happen is through presentation. And then last but not least, of course, is duplication. And that's the art of putting it all together and teaching those individuals who have come on board with you, become a part of your organization, for those individuals to literally be able to go out and do the same. But if you will insert into or in between prospecting and presentation, if you will insert this powerful technique entitled contacting and inviting, if you'll write your own script, if you'll have something to say, if you'll work on saying it well, if you will appreciate the fact that people will join you based on how well they know, like, and trust you, if you will focus on making another call after the appointment has been scheduled and then just say goodbye and move on, if we can focus on these fundamentals and get better, one day, who knows, they may ask you, an individual that came from very modest means, many of you know the story. I grew up in Salem, Oregon, got married at 18. Our first child came when I was 20, 2 years later. Our second daughter came along 2 years after that. At 22 years of age, found myself married for 4 years, 2 children, and on welfare. Ladies and gentlemen, I dropped out of high school in the 11th grade. I never had the opportunity to go on to college. My formal education stopped right there. When you're on welfare with an 11th grade education, you've been married for 4 years, you're 22 years of age, and you've got 2 children, and you're about as upside down as you can possibly be, I'm telling you, how do you get from that arena in Salem, Oregon to this magnificent stage here in Oklahoma City? It's called working on the fundamentals. It's working on the fundamentals. It's working on the fundamentals. If I can do it, you can do it. If I can learn the skills, you can learn the skills. If I can read the books, you can read the books. If I can take the classes, you can take the classes. If I can hang around the people in these front rows, you can hang around the people in these front rows. Ladies and gentlemen, go to your destiny.